folks. This is vk3sl, and welcome to the evening test missions, where we sample historic recordings.
Good evening.
And hello to you, Frank. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, just had a bit of a rest. But I will stand guard a little bit tonight and won't go too late because we're all busy at this point in time, all recovering and finding our even keel.
Suits me very well.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. Well, yes, it's nice to be back and nice to hear you on the late night program.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Yes, I missed it.
Yeah,
missed
missed you.
time.
Well, that's right. It's been a couple of weeks. I think 2 weeks ago we didn't do emissions.
That was it.
And last week you were up in Brisbane.
Sunny Brisbane, yes.
Yeah. And how did that go, incidentally?
It was a very busy trip. We had engagements all the time. And,
Okay.
It was a bit draining, really, but
Okay.
enjoyable.
Sure. Good.
I'm looking back on it day by day now, what happened a week ago sort of thing.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to look at these things in hindsight and sort of...
Yeah. I'm very glad we did it. It was
Yeah.
mostly things to do with Kathy's
Yes.
former life in Brisbane, I
Okay.
guess, catching up with friends and birthday parties and stuff like that.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Now, I do notice you've got a little bit of feedies
Yes,
back.
Fees is back. Just
Yeah,
hold.
we might just wind back a tiny bit, and then it'll be all excellent.
Move.
Yeah, that's fine.
There we go.
Yeah, it's good. Right. Well,
Sorry, it's still not good.
no, it's okay. We can work with that.
That's all right. That's
Yeah,
fine.
but we've solved that other problem earlier, so that's good. Yeah, all right. I'm glad it went well. And well, look, what I thought might be fun is to sample some recordings of Alfredo Campoli. There's been some remarkable uploads in recent times, and it'd be nice just to play a few of those. And there's even a Desert Island program from BBC in 1953 where he's interviewed.
Oh, excellent.
And it's a terrific listen, actually. But I might just play us a couple of small bits of that, and just as a little sample, and you can really get an insight into his personality and and his musical preferences. But what I thought it'd be fun to start off with one of the recordings he made with his salon orchestra at the Dorchester Hotel. And the story of Campoli was that he was a child prodigy, and then he really sort of peaked at the beginning of the Depression, and it wasn't an easy time for soloists, so he found incumbency working with a light music ensemble and had spectacular success with that group. And then after the Depression, he was able to resume his concert activities, and he basically concertized right up until the 1960s. 70s even.
Many records.
He made many, many records.
Yes. We had some, as I told you, at primary school.
Sure. Great. It would have been.
My teacher loved them.
Yeah. Look, he's just got the most beautiful sound. It's
Lovely velvety sound.
It is, and it's that bel canto Italian style. It's light and it's just ethereal, and it's got a lovely.
On the strings.
Yeah, it's just magnificent. So I thought it'd be lovely to start with something from his salon tradition, maybe a couple of records. I've got quite a lot here, actually, but we'll play one now called Love in Idleness. It's a serenata, and it features Mr. Campoli back in 1930 Mumble with his salon orchestra at the Dorchester Hotel in London. charming's that?
Very charming.
It certainly is.
Sweet.
They're sipping their teas there in the Dorchester, listening to Mr. Campoli and his group. Yes, I can just imagine the elegant scene there at the Dorchester back in the 30s. They made lots of records. They were really prolific, and his ensemble had international renown. Beautiful, aerated sound and lovely arrangements. I don't know if he had much of a part in the arrangements or not. Perhaps he did. They do feature him very strongly, so maybe so. But yeah, look, they all are very charming. There's another here, a track called Dance of the Pirates. So this one's also quite pleasant. So
Sounds a bit energetic for salon music.
yeah, we'll have a listen, see what it's like. I think, if I recall, this one is a bit of fun. There we go. Light music from the 30s, and I do think the
Bouncy little number.
yeah, it certainly is. The xylophone, or it was probably wouldn't be a marimba. What would it be? A something.
No.
Sounds xylophone-ish anyhow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a thing, yeah.
yes, yeah,
What's it?
mallet percussion.
Yeah.
It certainly adds a bit of sparkle. And yeah, that's a bit of fun. There was sampling a few of the Salon recordings. This next one is from the same batch. It's labelled as Campoli and his Salon Orchestra. And it's a canzonetta by a long forgotten Italian violinist called D'Ambrosio. And D'Ambrosio did make records. I've seen his name in anthology. Yeah. I think he sort of exemplifies the Italian style. So I haven't sampled this one, but I thought it'd be worth checking on us and seeing what happens.
Definitely.
So,
this is VK3JR on 145.04, working VK3SL
yes,
on
indeed.
160 metres.
That's right, crossband
Testing.
duplex. Yes, we are testing, and 2 meters input there with Frank. All right, well, let's give this a burl, and we'll hear the Canzonetta by D'Ambrosio on an old Decca 78. I'm VK3SL. Oh, what a beautiful piece. Unfortunately, record was mistracking the whole way there. Not sure what's going on there because the record looks in perfect condition, but something's amiss there. I'm wondering if the stylus tip might have chipped on one of these needles because we've had a few tracking issues lately, so there could be a wider problem there. I can give it a clean. Oh, it does feel like it's gummed up.
It's a shame. It's a lovely piece.
It's a gorgeous piece, yeah. Lovely little thing, little vignette. The Canzonetta by D'Ambrosio. I have heard that before. It's, there we go. I'm just giving the stylus a clean. Right, we'll play. Well, I think we'll sort of move into a couple of classical examples now. And put that needle back in. And another 78 from the Campoli pile is, we've got a choice here, Frank. You can tell me what you like. We've got the Waltz in A major by Brahms, and on the other side, Rondino on the theme by Beethoven. That's the Chrysler arrangement.
Let's do that one.
Yeah, it's a great piece. And this is with Gerald Moore accompanying Alfredo Campoli. Again, in the 30s, most of these records are from that time, pre-war. And we'll see if this one plays any better. I hope so. No, I'm going to change the needle. I don't think that's good. I think we have a problem in
Okay.
the needle department, so we'll stand on by.
Stylus issue, do you think?
Stylus, I think we've got a dead stylus, which is sort of a shame, really. I'll swap it over, unless the cartridge is showing sign is doing something it shouldn't. I'll need to investigate this more thoroughly, but look, we'll try it. Here we go. I've plugged a different needle in, and we'll just see if this works any better. Fingers crossed. Oh, I just love the lyrical way he played that.
Yeah, beautiful.
He had lots of space. Yeah, so look, I'm a little bit preoccupied with this technical issue because obviously it hasn't resolved. Now, I'm going to just, in the name of testing, as we do, I'm going to quickly, I've swapped the original stylus onto the other turntable, and I'm just, if you don't mind, if I sample that record again.
No,
And
I'd love to hear it again.
Yeah, look, it's lovely. I think it's possible it might be the cartridge that's playing up because I'm surprised that both needles are doing the same thing.
That seems to rule the needle out,
Yes,
doesn't
it
it?
does a bit. So we'll just try this on the other turntable. We're engaged now, and we'll just see if the problem still happens. did enjoy hearing that again. But yeah, I think the problem's still there. But look, we'll look into it another time. I'll do some further experiments.
Sure.
Something's going on that shouldn't, and not quite sure what it is. But what we can do is have a little listen to just a little of Roy Promley's Desert Island Discs.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 1953.
No needle required.
No needle needed. Yes, it's off the tube. In fact, no, it's actually off the BBC Sounds website.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's off their archive. So this is good. And so, look, I'll play a little of this, and it's certainly worth a listen. It's all a little bit sort of formulaic, but, you know, you get a sense of Mr. Campoli's, he tells a story of his life, or parts of it, and you certainly get a background to why he has such a strong bel canto. We'll hear the story.
Good.
Let's have a listen. Now, I think he starts off in this instance by referring to a recording which we've just heard, well, we haven't heard, but he's just played of Heifetz to open the program. So,
Right.
yeah, this is initially his reflection.
I remember very vividly being taken by my father to the Queen's Hall to hear Heifetz on his first appearance in this country. It would be about 1920.
Mm-hmm. Was your father a musician?
Oh, yes, indeed.
A violinist?
Yes, he was the leader of the Santa Cecilia Orchestra in Rome and a professor at the Conservatoire.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yes, he was my only teacher. My mother was a well-known dramatic soprano. She had a fine, big voice with a wide range and was acclaimed as the greatest Aida of her day in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
She appeared with Scotti, Caruso, San Marco. It was to appear at Covent Garden that the family first came to London from Rome. I was then about 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We all liked London, and we stayed.
Yes. Well, I have an idea this is leading up to one of your mother's records, is it?
Unfortunately, my mother's records no longer exist. If they did, I would certainly have taken one to my island. Instead, I take a record of a favorite aria from Aida, and it's sung by an artist whose voice most nearly reminds me of hers, as I remember it. Renata Tebaldi. Now, let's stay with the music of Verdi for my next record. The prelude to Act 3 of La Traviata.
Yeah. With Toscanini conducting?
Of course.
Good.
It's a wonderful performance. Toscanini, incidentally, in his young days, was a cellist in the same orchestra as my father.
Mm-hmm.
They were good friends. I remember one of my father's favorite stories was how Toscanini got his first chance. That is, if you'd like to hear it.
Well, any story about Toscanini is good to hear, and this sounds like a particularly promising one. Please go ahead.
It was in Rome, about 1890, the beginning of the opera season. The first production was to be Aida, and a famous conductor of the day named Mugnoni was in charge. 24 hours before the curtain was due to rise, Mugnoni had a violent disagreement with the management. Italian temperaments were let loose, abuse was hurled. Mugnoni walked out, complete and utter consternation. Who were they going to get to conduct Aida at 24 hours' notice? The director of the opera house, Tito Ricordi, was walking around in small circles and in a panic. Then a little man sprang up from the cello section of the orchestra and said, "If you're in trouble, I know the opera. I could conduct it tomorrow night." "Who is this young upstart?" said Ricordi. "Impudence." Well, despite frantic efforts, the hours passed and still they hadn't found a conductor. Ricordi had no alternative but to take a gamble and sent for the young cellist. He got the job. He was a huge success, and his name, Arturo Toscanini. Let's hear him conduct the NBC orchestra in this prelude to La Traviata.
Okay, I will do a fade-o-matic there because it's quite a long track. But what a great story there, Frank.
Oh, what a great story.
Isn't it amazing? That's how things start. It's just...
How many great artists have got to start through somebody getting ill or
Yeah,
the last minute dropping out?
that's it. Just be able to fill in and just, know the opera as you do.
That's right.
It's staggering, isn't it?
It is staggering because why would he? I mean, he wouldn't expect that. Tosca wouldn't expect that sort of thing to happen. Just chance in Mars.
Yeah, I think he was waiting for his opportunity. He's probably been quietly manoeuvring. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But it's a great story though,
Oh, it certainly is.
and the rest of it's history.
That's just totally history.
Yeah. But look, I mean, I suppose musicians like Toscanini had photographic memory, and
Must have.
and he probably knew his part by memory, and he probably had a fairly good knowledge of what comes where, and was able to adapt very quickly.
Yeah.
And
With no rehearsal or anything like that. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, yeah, you wonder how it actually happened in reality. I mean, I'm sure it worked well, but
Never having conducted. That's
well, this is the thing. I mean, really?
Yeah, a bit really. Yeah.
But still, it's a great story. I love it.
I know.
And it's probably got some vestige
Don't
of
let the
truth.
truth get in the way of it.
No, we can't. But yeah, it's fascinating to hear it being told
I know.
by Mr. Campoli. Now, the next one after this is a really interesting recording of Paul Whiteman's Swinging Strings.
Oh.
Now, this is just something else. There's no other known recording of this anywhere I can find on the net or anywhere else. So I'll fast forward through. Whoops, and we'll just see if we can find the spot. I just have to look on the screen here. It's 1720, I think it is. There you have it. I think we've got the right spot. Let's have a listen.
On that desert island, when I'd feel like a little humour. Here's an amusing record by Paul Whiteman's Swing Strings, called Ragging the Scale. This is particularly entertaining for violinists because the tune which is taken as the basis for this musical rag is the first of the Kreutzer studies for the violin.
Mr. Campoli, we've heard why and how you became a violinist, but how did your early days turn out? Did you have hard struggles, or did you find things fairly easy? How was it?
Well, there are very few musicians who don't have hard struggles at some time or another. I didn't have mine in my very early days. You see, I was considered a prodigy. During the First World War, at the age of 9, I gave over 100 concerts organized by the YMCA for the wounded soldiers. And by the age of 13, I'd won 6 first prizes and 2 gold medals at various London music festivals. And on the strength of all that, I was taken under the wing of the late Lionel Powell, and he sent me on concert tours with Clara Butt, Melba, and others. And I also gave a number of recitals in London.
In fact, you were doing very nicely.
Oh, very nicely indeed. But unfortunately, it didn't last. The slump of the 20s hit the concert world very hard. And I was grateful to get a job in a cinema orchestra, accompanying the silent pictures.
Then Hearts and Flowers is probably a very familiar tune to you.
As you say.
Where did the cinema job lead you?
Well, it led me to some serious thinking, and I came to the conclusion that there was a greater measure of security in light music than there was in serious music. I badly needed that security, so I formed my light music orchestra and promised myself that it was to be only a temporary measure.
Yes. But surely it wasn't very easy to get back, was it? I mean, apart from having to give up that measure of security, you had to live down your light music success. And I understand that in the musical world, the dividing line is drawn rather sharply, isn't it?
Well, it is in some cases. But it didn't stop me from appearing at promenade concerts in the Old Queen's Hall with the late Sir Henry Wood and with other symphony orchestras.
At the same time that you were running your light music orchestra.
Yes.
Well, what happened then?
The war came along, and Enza asked me to take part in concerts for the troops, hospitals, factory workers, and so on. You know, it was most gratifying to discover that the demand was for the more serious type of music.
Good.
And since then, I've been able to play only the sort of music that I wanted to play. I have been lucky enough to tour many parts of the world and have some even more wonderful tours lined up for the near future.
Splendid. Well, what about another record? I think it's time we had another one.
Yes. Well, a record by Horowitz. I always think of him as the Heifetz of the piano. Listen to his amazing technique in Dochniani's Capriccio in F minor. emotional and glorious voice of Beniamino Gigli singing Your Tiny Hand is Frozen from La Boheme. I am always thrilled by his magnificent top C on this record.
Aspetti, signorina, le dirò con due parole. Chissà che faccia come vivo. Chi sono un poeta, che cosa faccio? Vivo, e come vivo, vivo. In povertà mio lieto, sono da gran signore, prima d'inni d'amore, per sogno versi mare, e per castelli in aria. L'anima penetrare con voi furore ed i miei sogni fati e i miei sogni miei tutto
How would you face up to this desert island experience, do you think? Could you look after yourself efficiently under those circumstances?
Well, I'm afraid I wouldn't be very good.
No?
No, I'm not very proficient at doing things with my hands. It dates back to my youth when I was never allowed to handle a hammer or to do any carpentering in case I hurt my fingers. I'd have to start more or less from scratch.
Yeah. Well, I can quite see that to keep a touch as sensitive as yours has to be, heavy manual labor and boxing and that sort of thing would be out.
Yes, I can assure you it was the cause of a great conflict in my childhood. I adored my music, but I hated being ordered to give up football at the age of 15. I'd always been keen on sport, and for my age, I was showing a fair amount of promise as a soccer player.
So, but for the violin, you might have turned out to be another Stanley Matthews.
Well, I don't think so, not with my weight.
Still, there are plenty of gentler sports, aren't there?
Yes, I've played a lot of tennis, and table tennis, billiards, and snooker, and I'm very keen on bridge. I have recently taken up croquet, and I find it most absorbing.
Yes. And anybody who says that croquet isn't a tough game has never played it.
Yes. As for billiards and snooker, I had the privilege of being taught by a Melbourne Inman, which got me off on the right foot. And a good friend of mine is that great artist of the cue, Joe Davis. Which brings me to my next record, A Memory of Evenings at the Green Bay Stable. I've borrowed from the BBC library a record of Raymond Glendinning describing Joe Davis making a century break at snooker.
And now Joe is having a look to see whether he can force one of the reds just past the pink again into the top left-hand pocket. This is a magnificent cue ball control.
72.
Down it goes, but he can't get the black as a red in the way of it. 72, and he's going to try the pink.
78.
He gets the pink with absolute complete assurance of the master of the game that he is, and the score is 78. Now there are 5 reds left on the table, and he's going to cut one of them into the top right-hand pocket. Rather slower one this time, comes right across, and he's come a bit too far. The score is 79, and this time Joe's cut too far. He's about 6 inches below the pink, and he's covering it about 3/4 ball. He's measuring the distance. He'll have to take a rest. 79, this is a crucial point if he's going to get a 100 break. It's a very fine cut now into the top right-hand pocket on the pink. 79 is score. Can't get really happy. He's got one knee up on the table. Joe gets really settled for the shot, and he's just going to play it. I think he's going to play it now. Yes, here it goes. Oh, a beautiful shot. Yes, it's down. Well, that really was a tricky one. That's 85, and that has probably made all the difference, because Joe might easily clear the table from here now. 85, he's made 15 for yet another century break, and Joe will tell you a little later on when I talk to him over the microphone exactly how many he's made. I think his record at the moment is somewhere in the nature of 226 century breaks. A beautiful red from a rather difficult position because he couldn't control the cue ball very well from right away down the table. Has gone right up on the black again, and 86. 86, Joe Davis on the black, 3 reds left to go. Down it goes, crashing down, and Joe has come swinging off the cushion until he's left himself almost opposite a red, which is just above the middle pocket. 93 the score. Joe cuts it in beautifully, 94, and he's come right round behind the black over the top cushion, and he's on the black again, 94. This is going to be the first 100 break ever on the air. If you hear this one go down, you will know that history has been made. Down it goes, and Joe's made 100 on the air for the first time, although he has made many hundreds, and it's the first time anybody's had the privilege of describing Joe Davis, the world champion, making a break of 100 at snooker on the air.
Okay, I'll just take a short break there, and just to remind the listener, this is vk3sl testing on 160.
vk3jr.
Indeed, and we're listening to Alfredo Campoli's Desert Island Discs, and that one was Raymond Glendinning describing the snooker. I like those whispering snooker.
Yes, yeah, so intimate.
They're so intimate. It's a real ASMR of the mic, isn't it? They're whispering into the mic, and it's like pillow talk. It's funny to hear. And I remember that Pot Black program it used to be on.
Very well.
Yes, and that was all very, very whispering, and they describe things in this sort of curtailed.
Right, it's almost like a sort of a holy sort of.
Yes, exactly. It's liturgical, isn't it? Yeah. The way they used to speak. Yeah, so I thought that was really funny. Look, there's only one more on this track list of Mr. Campoli's program with Roy Plomley. What a name! What a British name, Roy
She doesn't
Plomley.
get more British than that.
Doesn't it? And it's so sort of, jolly good show, old boy. It's got that sort of feel. But the last track, he plays a recording of himself, and it is glorious. It's really wonderful. So we'll play this, and then that'll sort of tie it up. But
That amazing piano playing.
yeah, oh god, yeah, the
Like
Horowitz.
a rare speeded up record.
I know. I was listening to it, thinking, how can anyone play that fast?
I know.
Incredible and so clear.
Faster and faster.
I know, it's astonishing. And wasn't the Puccini beautiful?
Oh, just superb. Oh, what a voice.
What a voice, what a velvet
What a
voice.
voice.
Yeah, and just so beautifully phrasing. I was listening to the way he built one phrase upon the other, and it just had this wonderful sense of expansion.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I loved it. There was the extreme high notes went without strain, you know.
I know. They just glow, don't they?
Yeah.
They're just magnificent. All right. Well, look, we'll hear Mr. Campoli describing the very last. This is the final selection on this BBC program, Desert Island Discs from 1953.
Yes, I'm always entranced when I see Joe manipulating his magic cue. And you can imagine how delighted I was to hear that he also enjoys my concerts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now we come to your last record.
Well, naturally, my career is very important to me. And on that desert island, I would like a reminder of the standard I'd reached when I was cast away. You know, you can't do any practicing on a desert island. So, in all modesty, I would include one of my own records.
Yes, which one?
I would choose a recent one, the slow movement from the Sinfonia Espagnole by Lalo.
And that's your 8 records. Now, you've one more choice to make, Mr. Campoli. What would you like as your luxury article? You can take any one object you like to your island, but nothing useful. What?
Well, what about a football to help me to keep fit?
But you're not allowed to play football.
Oh, well, I'm allowed to play football on my own, but not with other people. That makes me the perfect desert island footballer. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Oh, it's so formal. There we had it. Yes.
So BBC of that time.
It is all
They were all like
scripted.
that.
It's sort of stultified and scripted, and I just occasionally get a sense of Campoli's humour and his personality. But
Yeah, you do.
But
It
it
sort of
becomes sort of
bubbles through, doesn't
It does bubble through. Then it becomes sort of trapped in the vernacular.
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating stuff though to hear him describing his own. His own tastes and his background and stories.
That's an amazing story about starting off as a prodigy and then hitting the wall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's staggering. It's incredible. So, yeah, I know. Well, look, I'm going to have to wind it soon, but I will play
sure.
one. I'll play this Tartini Sonata. Now, this is such an amazing piece of music.
The Devil's Trill.
Yeah, it's not the Devil's Trill. This is it. It's not that. It's another one. It's in G minor, this one.
Righto.
And yeah, it's...
I think the Devil's Trill's the only one I know, actually.
Yeah, that's the one you sort of hear most...
knowledge.
Yeah, well, that's the one that sort of always played. It might be the Devil's Trill. I should check.
You'll know it when you play it anyway.
Yeah, we'll hear it. But look, I listened to this. This has been put up online by John Hanna, Mr. Vintage Sounds.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm walking to work these days, and I listened to it on the way in, and I thought, this is some of the most glorious violin playing I've ever heard. It was just now sometimes just movement and situation, just sort of everything.
Yeah,
sort
just
of gels, and you feel a bit elated and stuff.
I know.
And it was one of those sort of slightly existential
Those
moments.
come out of nothing, don't
Yeah, they do,
sometimes?
and where you sort of feel really elated and listening to something very beautiful.
I know.
So anyhow, that was the story, and I very rarely comment on people's YouTube things. I just don't usually do it, but I did in this instance. This is what I wrote down here. This is what I wrote to Mr. Hanna. I said, or I wrote in the comment sections, a lot of comments on this record, and I said, there is an openness and luminosity in Campoli's bel canto, which evokes optimism, a sense of humanity where hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
I thought I'd say that because it is such optimistic playing. There's something sort of really, I don't know, looking towards the good things in life.
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll have to have a listen to
It's got a
this.
lovely honeyed tone, isn't
It
it?
does, beautiful sound. Just, yeah, everything about his playing I like. And it doesn't cloy, it's not too heavy, it hasn't got
no.
that. I mean, look, there are other times where different styles of playing it have, they have their special interest as well. But, yeah, sometimes it's just lovely to hear playing that's a little light and a bit, it has a, infectious... what's the word? Effervescence.
Yes.
So anyhow, let's have a listen to this recording from 1946. Alfredo Campoli. And who's the fiddle player in this? I think it's Eric Gitton. Yes, and recorded in London, 1946. And this is just at the time when he was picking up his career. So we'll hear this sonata by Tartini. we have Mr. Campoli playing a sonata by Tartini. Sonata in G minor. Isn't it beautiful? Gorgeous playing here. Well, it's going to keep going. Unless I turn this off. Yes, the next one's The Devil's Trill. That's with Menuhin. Anyhow, there we have it. That's a little bit of a special. In fact, there's one short track I will finish up with the Campoli special, and then I'll need to wind up. Actually, there's something after this I will play. It's a little bit personal, and I'll explain it afterwards.
Sure.
But I'll play this first, and it is the Arioso from Cantata BWV 156.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and he just plays it so simply. I just love its simple utterance. It's magnificent. So here we go. Let's have a listen to Mr. Campoli playing Bach. yes, bold simplicity there. Beautiful performance of
So satisfying.
yeah, of the Arioso. Wonderful. So yes, Alfredo Campoli. He just was a magnificent musician with a really fascinating background, unusual career really, and yeah. So look, that more or less ties things up. I am going to play one more track, and I'm going to write out with this one, and I'm going to be strong in telling us a very quick story behind this. It's been a really tragic week for us because a very close friend passed away this week, and she was a very good friend of ours who we did a lot of walks with earlier, and she was only 50, and she just died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage, and it was just so shocking and so sudden, and just unbelievable, biggest disbelief.
I'm very sorry.
Leaving a young family, and it's just words can't describe how it's like being struck by lightning.
Yes.
Anyhow, you deal with these things in the best way you can, and my way when I hear something really shocking like that is to play something, and I played the next morning, shortly after I heard. I went to the chapel at the school where I teach, and I made a short recording, and so I'll share that now to finish. So this is a little tribute recording for our friend Vicky T, and she was a beautiful person who just touched everyone who knew her. So I'll just play the prelude to the D minor suite by Bach. So thanks, folks. We'll be back tomorrow, and we look forward to your company. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Steve.
Catch you soon.